Welcome to Black History Conversations. It's a great opportunity again to welcome more friends to tell us about their work and research and to get an update from the Windrush Allies Network. So I'm delighted. I'm Les Millman from Learning Links International, and we're also hoping that Jean-Samuel Miffelin will join us as well. So we'll see how we get on. But first of all, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm currently living, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Respect to their elders, past, present, and future. This land belongs to the sovereign people of the First Nations and was never ceded. It always was and it always will be Aboriginal land. I start off each session with that and also remind us that it's the International Decade for People of African Descent. So we're well on the way through that. So we have to find out at some stage in one of our sessions more about what's been going on. But what we're going to start with this session is we're welcoming Moqapi Selassie, who's been doing some family research. And the subject that Moqapi's been looking at is the left behinders. So Moqapi, can you introduce yourself first of all? Okay. Tell us where you are and tell us why this is particular interest. Well, I just changed the PowerPoint over and I'll present your PowerPoint. So over to you, Moqapi Selassie. I'm delighted that you're with us.
Okay. Thanks, Liz, for that introduction. Yeah, my name is Moqapi Selassie, born and grown in England, Birmingham. Yes, I'm Rastafari, and at the moment I'm in Tanzania due to the COVID malarkey, and so I'm over here in Tanzania, and I came onto the Black History Conversations, and once we're dealing with Windrush, and at least put it to me about the left behind us. What about those Jamaican children that were left behind? What was it like for them? That kind of untold story. So I thought, well, I've got 7 brothers and sisters who fit into that category, cousins, nephews, etc. So I thought, all right, I'll interview them and see what they say, what it was like, and this is it. I call them the left behinders, and take it away, Liz. All right, so yeah, as it states, between the months of May and July 2020, I interviewed 13 of my relatives about their experiences of being left behind in Jamaica, brothers, sisters, nephew, nieces, and cousins. Some of the questions: how old were you when your parents or our parents left you in Jamaica? Who did you stay with? What was that experience like? What was it like growing up in Jamaica? How old were you when you came to England? What was it like meeting your parents after such a long time? And yeah, what was your first impressions of England? What was your relationship with your brothers and sisters who were born in the UK like? What were they like? And how did your relationships with your parents and siblings affect your relationships with others? So basically what happened, let me read the introduction. I'll have a little talk after.
Right.
My name is Moqapi. Yeah. So, sorry, Liz.
Just have time to talk about the questions then.
Okay, so what happened is that basically, which you'd see on the next slide, is that I was born in England, parents from Jamaica, brothers and sisters from Jamaica, and I'm looking at my family, and I see certain issues in inverted commas, and I think that it's those issues where this one doesn't talk to that one, this one doesn't talk to that one, and so forth. I think that was part of being of the way they were brought up, basically. So yeah, my name is Moqapi Selassie. I was born in Birmingham, England in 1956. It sounds like ages ago. To Jamaican parents, yes, the original Windrush generation has come to be known. My parents had 10 children in all, 7 born in Jamaica and 3 in England, 6 girls, 4 boys. I'm the first of my family to be born in England, a Windrush Pitney, so to speak.
I've always been fascinated, Moqapi, you know, having known you for quite a while, when you've talked about the different stories about people in your family. It's one of the reasons that you know, we decided that it would be good for you to do this research. So that's brilliant.
Thanks. So both my parents came to England in 1955. My father came first, and then 8 months later, my mother joined him. The 7 children they had at that time were left with relatives in Jamaica. My grandmother, that's my mom's mom, cousin, uncle, and uncle. So effectively, the family became departmentalized.
Wow, that's quite something for 7 children to be left behind.
Yeah, I know.
Now we're moving on to the lucky one.
Okay. So in my I'll just go through. I have 3 brothers. All of them were born in Jamaica. When my mother came to England, they were 10, 7, and 5 years old, respectively. And they were taken to Kingston, the capital, to stay with an elder female cousin who was single and childless. They called her Auntie Cis, and they, in a sense, were her boys.
It's great, and you used a really good illustration here, Moqapi, of the Empire Windrush's journey to Britain. It's really good detail on this one, and of course we're looking to a special year next year for the recognition. So, okay then. So your 3 brothers were in Kingston.
Yeah. Okay. So my 3 brothers were in Kingston. 2 of my two of my sisters. Well, the rest of the sisters were in St. Anne's, Gibraltar, but they were split. They were also split between relatives. So the lucky ones, they went to good schools. So these, what I did was, I thought, all right. After speaking to my relatives, I categorized certain things, and one of the groups was the lucky ones. They went to good schools according to others in the family, and they themselves saw that they were the lucky ones. So it was them that said, it was my brothers who said, oh, we were the lucky ones, right? Essentially, the lucky ones are those left behind us who were treated well by their guardians. Okay? Then you've got the unlucky ones. These were the ones who ended up with relatives or guardians that treated them badly. My cousins, my nephew, and my niece fell into this category. They were treated differently from the children of the guardians. Dum 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 dum. They were worked mercilessly. It was like slavery, as my cousins and nephews described it. Also, they were beaten on a regular basis, sometimes for nothing at all. My cousin, the same one who used to get beatings for no reason, also had to go through the ordeal of his elder cousin, getting other boys to fight him after school on the 5-mile walk home. If he lost, his cousin would then, that's the elder cousin, would then beat him, right? So he'd get 2 beatings. His sister told me how this same cousin used to hold her by her feet and dangle her over a high wall, and as she screamed, he would laugh. She said she's still having nightmares about it now. And she's what? She's 60, in her 60s.
And it's interesting, probably these stories aren't told often, and they're really hard stories.
And so another one of my categories is a school of hard knocks. So the Jamaican children went to what I would call the school of hard knocks. This wasn't in the formal Jamaican school system, but the way they were brought up at home informally, what Jamaicans call bratopsy. Bratopsy can be defined as the handing down of certain skills and cultural norms that were necessary to survive in the community. For instance, children were to have manners and respect their elders. They were to be seen and not heard. They were taught to cook, wash, iron, sew, etc., and be able to look after and care for their younger siblings when necessary, both male and female. All pointed out the harshness of the morning routines they had to carry out before going to school. They all stated how hard it was, walking 5 miles barefooted to get water, or going to get wood for the fire in the dark, in the bush, or tending the animals. So many related how terrifying it was. They then had to get ready for school. So they had to do all these things before school, right? So they had to go and get the water, get wood for the fire, etc. Look after, deal with the animals, and then get themselves ready to go to school. And then once they got themselves ready, they would all meet up and then walk to school together. So the school was like a 5-mile walk to school and 5-mile walk back. They couldn't be late or turn up untidy. If they turned up untidy, the parents would be told and they would be held to pay. On returning home, they had yard duties to do, homework, and then bed to do it all over again the next day and the next, and so on. Interestingly, though harsh, most said it held them in good stead for the future. Dun, 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 dun. Coming to England. Mom and dad are struggling. The house is full of food and drink, but money is low. It looks like the grass is greener from far, but when you reach, it's not green. The system is a fraud. Easy to come in and hard to get out. You see, we don't know what we have. Right? So that's a quote from my nephew. And then he goes on to state, God bless this country. No country in the world like it. See for Jamaica, heart disease, and would have dead. Heart, obia. Gallstone, obia. Man get stroke, dopey lick him. When man get shot in Jamaica, you ever see ambulance? Pick up van with plastic, put down on the bottom, washable. So there he's saying, like, for him when he came over, what it was like. But even in saying, criticizing like the hardships that he went through, he's still looking at it and saying, you know, really, I'm really glad I'm in England, made it to England, because if I was in Jamaica, I'd be going through even worse hardship, so to speak. So that's what he was, is like, yeah, being grateful in a way that he got out of Jamaica. Coming to England, my cousins, nephews, and sisters remarked that when they came to England, the biggest surprise was the brothers and sisters that they met whom they never knew they had. Their parents never let them know that they had other brothers and sisters. Right? So, for example, oh, there we go. For instance, my two sisters knew about me, but only found out about my two younger sisters when they arrived at our home. They were then told, here's your brother and sisters. Surprise, surprise. This happened to my cousins who discovered they had a brother and a sister, my other cousin, 2 brothers and a sister, and my nephew and niece who found that they had 3 additional sisters, all born in England. All the Jamaicans stated that they were surprised at how close the houses were together and the size of the houses, small little boxes. The weather was another issue, and then the racism, the discrimination and racial prejudice that was prevalent at the time. The racism, the level of it, took them all by surprise. They'd heard mostly good things about England, so imagine the shock when coming to England to find that you weren't really wanted, that your sole aim for being here was to do what my parents called the shit walk. Sorry about that. Maybe it should have been deleted. Bleeped out. The jobs that the whites didn't want to do. So that's what my parents used to call the work that they had to do in the factories, the foundries, etc. They called it the shit walk. right? So coming to England, that's what my sisters and brothers realized, right? My sister pointed out that the parents weren't truthful about what was happening in England. For instance, they never relayed back to ones in Jamaica that they had additional brothers and sisters. Also, my sisters told when they worked at the same factory as our mum, mum had told the employers that my sisters were her nieces. And question, what was all that about?
Well, wow, what a story.
Mm-hmm.
A lovely
Yeah,
way
that's
to
us.
end it.
Yeah.
We've just got to have that solidarity. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. Thank you for Moqapi for presenting that that PowerPoint, letting me have that in advance. Thanks ever so much. I know it's quite complex at times, but gosh, that whole presentation, and I've had an email asking me what the left behinders, what I mean by it, because I'd sent out an invitation to this session, and I think you described it only too clearly. So, June Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Moqapi, for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Obviously, there is another side of Left Behind us that to be told, but I nearly became a left behinder.
Okay.
Even though I was born in England. I might have mentioned before that my paternal grandfather, he didn't like the way that my mum was being treated in England. So he sent for my mum and she came back to Jamaica, but we were split up. My mum went to Trelawney and was the postmistress there, was my younger sister. And then me and my brother was in Manchester with all these cousins that we'd never met before. But we had to go to school, but the road wasn't like England. It had lots of rocks on it, Rockstone Road. But we learned after a while to manage. And I can remember when I went to school, they used to, most of the children never wore their shoes to school. They were trying to save it. And when they get to school, there's like a round thing with water where you wash your foot. And then when you put your shoes on, when you go to school, it's like, you know, like you're in the army with the police, you have an inspection before you go and sit down. So everything that you said there, right, I could relate to, right? Because I was a grandchild of my grandmother from England, her first son, she seemed to really favoured my late brother, because that was her son in England who she never saw again, son. But what I wanted to say, I could relate. Before I went to school in Jamaica, I was only there for 18 months. And that's made me, that was my university as a child. Before I went to school, I had to milk the cows. So when I come back to England, the children that thought milk came from a bottle, I was way ahead of them, right? And the same with coffee in a jar. My grandma had a coffee farm. So we picked the coffee, put them on the barbecue, which is like a veranda, to dry. And then we put them in the martyr and we parch them. We martyr them when they parch, right? So now that language coming from me to a black person or a white person in England at that age, they wouldn't know what I was on about. Yeah. And when they say, like we say, oh, could we have a boiled egg? They would say a skull egg. Right. So they've got lots of expressions, and then that socialization has an effect on your future. And I am glad that I did go for 18 months. The only reason I came back was my grandma died. And my dad, this is where I close now, where I nearly became a left behinder, even though I was born in England. My dad said to my mum, I haven't got enough money to bring you all back. Just bring the baby, my sister, leave June and Eddie. We send for them later. right? So my mum said she's not leaving her children. So her brother paid for us to come. Otherwise, I would have been in your statistics there as
Okay.
left behind. End of story.
Okay. If I could just say something to what June Elizabeth was saying. Lisa, if you can remember when we were talking that project in Wolverhampton, the Rastafari development of roots and development of Rastafari in the West Midlands. We met a brother by the name of Dred Lester, right? And Dred Lester said to me, right, we were reasoning, and he said that he came over to England at the age of nine. And he said when he went to school, right, and he said he was sitting in the class, and he said he looked around, and he said he felt like that he was a man compared to the other children in the class, because he could already wash his clothes, iron his clothes, he could sew, so he could cook, right? And he said that they would go out and hunt and trap birds and those kind of things, and those yard duties that they had to do before school made him feel at the age of 9, compared to his peers in the class, that he was like a man. You know, so as I say in the presentation, there's another part of it. So that was just like the first part. I've got another part as well, which highlights like the differences between the Jamaicans, those who were born in Jamaica, and those who were born in England, and how they were treated by our parents, right? So, you know, we might have not felt it at the time, or we did, right? But I didn't realize how different the brought ups it was, you know, like those that were born in Jamaica and those who were born in England, and also the gender split. So for example, when the girls came over, it's like they then took over the mother role, right, for the siblings, for their siblings, right? So yeah, that's in part 2, folks, whenever that will be able to be presented. So as I used to say, same channel, same time, etc., etc.
Well, I think
All right,
it's fascinating. Thank you, Moqapi. But I've never read anywhere about any other research into this story, and I likened it, I think, in the email that I sent out. I likened it to the brown baby stories that that was the children of the Black American GIs in the Second World War. Those stories weren't brought out until relatively recently, and maybe this is a story like that, and it's a very, very sensitive story. So Garrick, you're going to come in now. That's great. Thank you, Garrick.
The presentation sort of is very much real to life, isn't it, Selassie? You know, I know it's your story, it's your family story, but you know, anyone listening to it would connect with many things that you've mentioned. And it's probably the only people who will connect with that is the people who were actually in that situation. You know, there's another terminology we use, the barrel children. There was a big article about the barrel children left behind. Because the barrel is where, you know, parents used to send things back home, and you know, all this stuff them send for you. And so, you know, those expressions is well known. I mean, it is a massive issue. Just on that topic alone, the left behind children, or the barrel children, which is part of the Windrush saga. And I call it a saga because it's just one of those things. Couple of things that you mentioned. in your personal story
Interesting.
about school, and the fact that June Elizabeth mentioned, when she attended school. I mean, school was very much a regimental thing. You go to school, of course, you walk to school. When you get to school, you play and you play, and then, well, when the bell ring, everybody stop play and line up, right? Them line up and have to line up straight, right? To attention almost, yes? And teacher will walk down the line with a pencil and put it through your hair, you see, to see if your hair comb, if you are not up, you see? And then you have to look at your fingernail and see if it looks clean. That was just standard thing,
Yeah.
And, if you were to tell children about that experience, that was the norm for us. And now children go to school or however they want. They just go to school, right? Regardless. So, we had discipline, we had hygiene, we all that stuff growing up. That was part of our education. And I don't know if it's still the case now in Jamaica. I don't know. But those things were the foundation of who we become later on in life. And of course, you mentioned the fact that all of us had to clean, wash, cook, carry load, look after the animal, all them things. That's just normal way of life.
Yes.
Everybody had to do it. Yeah.
So Garrett, can I ask you, were you left behind then?
No. I well, in a sense, yes, because my mother came 57. So I was left behind to join later, and I did. Yeah. So maybe in that term, I could be classed as a left behind, temporarily left behind.
Yeah.
So I came, and I think I've mentioned this before. I had to travel 1 month before my 12th birthday, because as soon as I hit 12,
Okay.
the fare is different, right? You then start to pay adult fare, right? So I was able to get the child fare, right, at just before 12. And I come on the BOAC. But lots of things that you mentioned in relation to normal duty and so much the behavior, because a lot of children, when they find themselves with other relatives, and some of the relatives they don't really know, and some of those relatives take advantage of the children, yes, and they would punish them more than their own children, yeah. So they beat them, so they get double beating. All those things is just sort of normal life. And I think if you go across the Caribbean, there's many similarities in the different islands around these. But the most important thing is about this story. I don't know, because Juanita Cox been collecting stories in relation to the Windrush experience. And, I'm thinking that this story might have some way of getting into her collection somehow, because it relates to, how complex the Windrush journey has been.
Yeah.
It's not just, we're not just dealing with immigration and status, we're dealing with lots of other things, in the human journey and all those things. So, it may well be a good contribution. I don't know what the second part of your story is, but, maybe having a conversation with Juanita Cox and see, if that can be cataloged as part of the Windrush stories. But yes, the question I would like to ask you now in relation to relationship with, because you've mentioned all the issues, but as we are now in 2022, what is the relationship with some of those brothers, sisters, and siblings, etc.?
That's a great question. For example, I mean, in my second part, in part 2, you will find out about the left behind us. So there's one of my relatives, my niece, or I call my newfound niece, who's still in Jamaica. So like my sister, she had her daughter in Jamaica and then came over to England and never brought her daughter over to England. Right, so she stayed in Jamaica, and growing up, we'd know the name, Elaine, etc., and so on and so forth. But we never saw any photographs of her or anything like that. Anyway, it was actually COVID that brought us together in a way, right? So there is a left behind her. And her relationship with her mother is toxic. Toxic in the sense that on her 60th birthday, I went to my sister and I called my niece and I said to my sister, your daughter's on the line, wish her a happy birthday, right? I thought it was something, really good. You know what I mean? Your daughter, 60th birthday, wish her happy. And she would not take the phone. She wouldn't take the phone. She was saying all the things that she's done to me in the past. And I've got my niece there saying, well, Uncle, what have I done? What do you mean? What have all the things that I've done to her? All I want is a conversation with a relationship with my mom. And, I diplomatically kind of, got her off the phone and so on, apologized to her, etc., etc. And up to this day now, they don't speak. Right. So there's that. Then I've got my nephew, the one who gave the quote about coming to England. He was left behind. So he was born like 1959, and his sister was born 56. She came over to England, but he was left behind and didn't come over until 1992. Right, so he came over rather late. When he came over, the same thing applied. Him and his family just couldn't gel. Right, and he's like, the parents, my sister and my brother-in-law, like they were trying to get him back to Jamaica, and they painted him as a bad man. You can't deal with him, he's bad, and you know what I mean. And all he wanted to do was, connect with his family, and he's got angina, you know what I mean, heart disease, and I look at it and I think, yeah, you're heartbroken. You're heartbroken at the treatment that you've got from your family, your brothers and sisters, and your mother. You know what I mean? And it goes on within the family. So when I said the family was departmentalized, my three brothers grew up together. Two of my sisters, they kind of grew up together. Then another two in Jamaica, they grew up together. And then the three of us, and me and my two younger sisters, we grew up together. So when I say departmentalized, it's like, we were the English, you know what I mean? Them by England, you know what I mean? So it was like that. It was like, I don't know if it was a blessing or a curse, you know what I mean, being born in England, you know what I mean? But, you know what I mean? It came over to us like, you're not quite you're not quite a human being because you're born in England, so there's certain things you do not know, right? On that journey of life, because they were born in Jamaica, they knew about these things, but we were born in England, so they don't know. You know what I mean? So yeah, what you're saying, the question that you answered, Garrick, is like, it's a bit like Humpty Dumpty. You know what I mean? Our family is a bit like Humpty Dumpty, who sat on the wall and had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. And it's a matter, and it kind of got worse when my father passed. And then last year, my mother passed, and kind of, it's like, for example, if we're going to have a family meeting, I'm the person who will call the family meeting, and I'm able to talk to every one of my brothers and sisters to get them to come to the family meeting. Otherwise, this brother's not talking to that brother, he's not talking to that brother, not talking to that sister, and then this sister is not talking. So it's like walking through a minefield or walking on eggshells, just to get a meeting. So
I fully understand that, because, and the thing is that, you know, we understand that this has impacted on the family and extended family.
Yeah.
But home office people will never understand all that. They don't, you know, they're not really interested in that.
Yeah.
Right. They're only interested in one particular bit. Right.
Yeah.
Not all that other bit. And, you know, all the hurt and the pain and the trauma that has gone through the family, the splitting up of family members and so forth, and different terminal illnesses as a result.
Yes.
They're not interested in all of that.
Yeah.
Right. They're only interested in the bit, okay, are you, you know, do you qualify for Windrush? Right. And that's all. But, you know, there was another point I'd like to make, Liz. This you know, this is part of the Jamaican culture and family. As young people, children growing up, you know, we're taught to respect our elder. And even if the elder is 2 years older than us or 5 years older than us, he's still older, yes? And we refer to everybody as auntie, uncle, right? That is the natural thing we do. Often when we speak about our relative in that way, we don't distinguish whether they're part of the blood family or not. And in the Windrush saga, when we try to connect, you know, with other family members, we still use the same expression, me auntie, me uncle, and so on, but they may not even be blood. But because that's a natural thing we do, that's us, you see? And I know the other issue is about pet name, right? Right? Everybody have a pet name, right?
Oh God.
And the pet name stick with you forever, right? And then when it comes to your birth paper and passport, now nobody know you, right? Because your pet name is what they know you from your born, right? And then you have all sorts of problem now trying to say, well, you know, my name was really Delroy, but they call me Ronnie. See? And, you know, that complicates the Windrush situation again, because when we're trying to get the legal position and try to prove things, right, and we can't find nothing with pet name, right, it causes problem. Right. And even though I still know many people with pet name, I never know their name any different.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? Garrett and Moqapi, you answered the question before I asked it. I was going to ask you about when the parents have passed, because I've done a study of comparing what it was like, because, you know, I've got Jamaica and I used to go to Jamaica frequently. My first funeral was in Jamaica when my grandma died. And I've been to lots of funerals, and now I compared it about 15 years ago was what funerals used to be like. Forget about COVID, but what I've now I've found out across the country, when somebody passes away, the Windrush generation, I'm talking about Jamaicans, because I know Jamaicans, now the generations are split up, and some of them don't talk to each other. I know it might happen in the white family, but what I've got going on now, right, I've got a family that were left behind us. They all came eventually, and I always thought they were all together. But now the father died, the mother died. From the mother died, you find that none of them are talking to each other, even when they were. So I'm now the one that talks to all of them, right? But I keep myself out. I don't want to have to be involved because it's got so dangerous.
Yes.
Threatening. And also I didn't know they were like that. And the younger brother, he's taking the oldest, his sister to court, right? For no reason. The mum left the house for 4 of them. He thinks she should have left it for him. And when he's gone to court, you want to see the report? He's talking about things that happened when he was left behind in Jamaica. And how the granny used to treat you special. And that's why them call it this pet name. And the pet name, it don't fit her, but that pet name made her grandeur, right? And all these things are coming out now that were kind of locked down.
Yes. Yes.
And as a psychodynamic counselor, I can see it, and not just in this family, across the country, you know?
Yes.
And, you know, it's just, I was going to ask you, has there been any changes? It's not brought them together, which I thought it would.
Yes. Yes. It's as if the parents were the glue for the family.
Put it like this, is it close to where we start? Let me see.
I don't know who that is, but yeah, it's like the parents were the glue to the family, and while they were alive, things were, you know, I mean, you still had those kind of splits, but I think one's held it down. Right, but when like my father passed, I mean, my father's passing was like, I didn't realize that there was so much angst amongst my brothers and sisters. So I never realized it until when my father passed, you know, and then my niece passed, and it kind of got worse. I thought, what is it with this family when someone passes? It's like a release of all the negative, all the bile, you know what I mean, comes out. And then my mom passed, and you know, we're still going through it, you know. So yeah, and what you stated, it is kind of like the cross, how can I put it? In different Caribbean islands, we have the same kind of thing. So for example, those who were born in the Caribbean, right, and came over, and then those that were born in England, the relationship between them, right, is a crucial one too, right? Because like with my sisters, it was like my 2 sisters, they then took over the role from my mother of cooking and so on and so forth. But interestingly, I mean, I've got nieces, right? So when we grew up, like, I mean, I must have been about 4 or 5, and you know, you Terry's nappies and they're wet, you're changing your niece or your nephew, you know what I mean? And they show you how to do it. Make sure you know, juke them with the pin. How to wipe to wipe them clean. You know what I mean? Whether them pee or doo-doo, or to deal with it. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm 5 years old. You know what I mean? Doing that. And we were original, you know, latchkey kids. So it was a matter that when you come from school, the keys, right, go around the back, the keys on the here or in the call house, go in there, get the key, let yourselves in. There's food there. You understand what I'm saying? Make sure you take off your school clothes, put on your judging clothes, right? Until your mom comes, right? So that's how we were brought up as well. You know what I mean? And so we, you know, it wasn't a matter of, you know, it was nice and cozy for us. We had to get in the kitchen and make your sister show your outfit. You know what I mean? Got the fish, clean out the fish,
Oh,
see the
gosh.
fish, etc., etc. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So we went through that bra topsy thing as well. You know what I mean? But it was my sister or my brother who showed, you know, who was signed to show us this is what you need to do. You know what I mean? This is all my dad, this is all your iron, you put a seam in your trousers. You know what I mean? You get the paper and newspaper. You don't, you understand what I'm saying? You don't iron him raw like that. You get a news. I mean, this was before
We had
steam
the iron that
iron.
you put on the fire.
That's right. And then you had to you get some water, sprinkle the water on the clothes, and then put on the paper. And then, so we went through that as well. But yeah, I mean, in doing it, interestingly, Liz, when I was doing it, my brothers, my sisters are saying, wow, this could be a book, but please don't put my name. please don't put my name. But yeah, it's much needed. This is what they said, because their story,
That's really
you know,
interesting.
wasn't told.
They
Yeah.
appreciated you asking them the questions then,
Yeah,
because
oh,
of the purpose that you
Oh,
were
yeah.
doing this piece of research to
yeah,
help us better
most
understand.
definitely.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
they had a radio program on with somebody like Mugabe, but then they interviewed all the people, and that's when
Okay.
it came to my attention. It was about 6 years ago, and it was a
Okay.
London program, and I was saying, like what Mugabe's talking about, I was saying, oh dear, and all the people saying, when I come from Jamaica, my mother used me like slave. And they were saying things like that, and then they treat my sister that brown hair like queen, right?
Oh,
so then when they got lots of people tuning, it was like a series. I thought, wow. Now, the fact that I was born here and we went to Jamaica and came back, I can't relate to my sister about that journey because she was a baby, right? When I moved to where I am now, I'm 2 doors from where I was brought up. And when we moved down here, I was 10 years old. And the same Jamaican journey, right? My mum went to work. Before I went to school, I got my baby my baby brother who was 8 months, ready for the childminder, took him to the childminder, then took my sister and myself, get her dressed, to school on 2 buses, came back, picked up my baby brother, and then brought him home, changed him nappy, and put on the dinner. And I was 10 years old, and I was born here. But if I didn't go to Jamaica for that 1.5 years, I wouldn't know the difference between a cocker and a yam.
Okay, Garrick, you got another point to make.
Yeah, Sister June mentioned something before about funerals, and you know, the classic one, we know this because at funeral it seems to bring the worst out of everybody, right? And people remember things from 40, 50 years ago that they never forget, right? And it come on, me not go for him funeral because him done me this and him done me that and he did this and he thief from me and he didn't pay me. All those stories come out, right? But even now, at 2022, the issues has not changed. I've seen funeral where people start to fight, right? They have disagreement verbally, and then it lead to fight at the funeral, at the graveyard, right? Nearly fall down in a grave, right? A fight, right? What for, right? All them foolishness there still go on. So it may be 50, 60 years ago, it is still going on today.
Yes.
And that seems to me that, you know, culturally, right, that is so ingrained into our DNA. And for those of us who have got children, the experience that we had in Jamaica or in any of the Caribbean island, we try not to put that onto our children, right? So it's our children born in the UK is a different experience, yeah, because they don't have to do the mundane things that we used to do and the hard job, right? But just a point about in the family where the different treatment will come, not just because you're the baby of the family, but also the shade of the skin in the family, right?
Yeah.
The shade of the skin in the family is the biggest problem.
Wow.
Right? Because the light skin one them get all the opportunity and glory, and the dark one them use like slave labor. That is reality right now, right?
True.
In 2022. That hasn't changed.
And that, interestingly, I never went down that path. Interestingly, I didn't go down that path. But you bring up a very interesting point when you're talking about the shadism or colorism. You know what I mean? It's a very crucial point.
I work in a nursing, not a nursing home, you know, a day centre where Black people go.
Yeah, yeah.
And then in the holidays, sometimes the grandparents might have their grandchildren for a day. And they might bring them, and then you'll hear expressions like, why? What a way she pretty, what a way she hair nice. Right? But then when you look, they might be talking of a light-skinned grandchild, be they mixed race or be they just light skin. And then the dark-skinned grandchild of somebody else, they don't say, oh, she's pretty, even though she's pretty. They don't say, what a way, she hair nice, even though she's got nice hair, because she's got African hair. So it's come from slavery. And when I say that, when I saw the first person being beaten when I was a child, I never got beaten, but in Jamaica, somebody done something wrong, and they were all sent out, my cousins, to get a whip. And they went and find a piece of tree, and then they bring it, and the one that make the most noise, they use it, then hold them.
Yes, difficult.
I can hear you. Yes, yeah, sorry, I'm going to cut.
Okay. Right, so thank you very much, June Elizabeth. I think, to me, it just has shown today just how complex the Windrush journey, if we can call it that, is, and just to hear your stories, and you've got lots more stories I'm sure you could share. I find it quite fascinating, and the stories, maybe you've indicated, Moqapi, that it's with the parents passing that these stories perhaps become possible to tell, and the distress, as you've said, Gary, then can come out. So it is extraordinarily difficult. That just trying to think of anything similar that I've heard of, and one thing is the stories of the Nigerian children who were fostered by their student parents in the UK. That's a very interesting story as well. And here in Australia, the forced adoption of Aboriginal children into white families, they were called the stolen generations. And that was a dreadful time, but the reconciliation of that was interesting because the Prime Minister said sorry. They had a big ceremony some years back now, and we now here in Australia have a National Sorry Day, to say that they're sorry, but then that's the state saying sorry because this shouldn't have happened. And what's so difficult about this story is that it wasn't the state, it was circumstances, and circumstances that made parents leave the Caribbean islands to move to Britain and to work, and during that time have further children, and then add to this complexity. So it is something that's a very difficult story, and it's always caused me to question over many, many years as to why this happened. But I can understand how it happened, just to make it any easier. So I just thank you so much, Moqapi. And please, if you get the opportunity, please thank your relatives for being honest and open with you. And maybe this is a conversation that will start now and will carry on. June Elizabeth said that she'd heard about it on a radio program some 6 years ago. But sometimes, things just get explored once and then they're left. So who knows what might happen? But I just have to thank you so much, Moqapi. And you just did brilliantly producing the PowerPoint and getting it to me. And we can't wait for part 2. So when do you want to do part 2, Moqapi? And at that moment, Moqapi disappears. Right, okay then. Well, welcome back, June Elizabeth. And sorry that but we managed that whole conversation between Tanzania, the UK, and me here in Australia. Utterly amazing, isn't it? This, the way things work. Anyway, welcome to you, Avril. We're glad you're able to join us as well. Now, we've got 2 other things we want to talk about, and we've got about 20 minutes or so. David Gleave is going to share a little bit of his story, but we also, and maybe it's better, David, that we carry on with this theme, was that Garrick and June Elizabeth and Roland are members of, make up the Windrush Allies Network. And Garrick, with your Justice for the Windrush Generations, there's been some significant activity going on in the last couple of weeks. So would you like to fill us in on that, how you felt it all went?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. The important thing for us is continuation. What we start, we must finish. So, we're not going to try and stop suddenly. So, we're here to carry on to the end. So on the 16th of November, we was in Parliament, and we had quite a number of people from different parts of London and the country attending. And we started off in the lunchtime around lobbying. That is an opportunity for people to come into Westminster, put a greenie card in if they haven't done so by formal letter, to see if their MP's in the House, and then have the opportunity of having an audience, a one-to-one with that MP. And between 12 and 4, we had that opportunity to do that, and we had a number of people meeting their MP. Then in the afternoon, from 5 through to 8, we call it the rally. That's when we have conversation with guest speakers on specific topics, and then the opportunity to raise question on the subject matter. And we had representation from one of our PhD student at York University, Melissa Williams. We also had presentation from our colleague Glenda Caesar, representing Windrush Lives and Justice for Windrush Generation. But we also had an organization called JCWI, which is Joint Council for Welfare and Immigrants. And that was represented by a speaker, Mary Atkinson. And, you know, JCWI has done quite a bit of research around Windrush. What we try to do is to focus on the issues around compensation, because we think that is the primary focus. So compensation and status is really our focus. But within that, you know, other things will come out. We're supported by Global African Congress as a partner. So our bi-monthly lobbying will always be lobby with Global African Congress and Justice for Windrush Generation. For us, what we came out with or come away with was the fact that we made some additional contact with MPs that we've not contacted before. So, you know, we're able to actually have conversation with MPs and their representative, including the Green Party. And the Green Party only have one member of parliament, but quite interested in the issues. And as always, you know, we appreciate the contribution that Belle Rabio Addy has made. And she always make it a point to come into the lobby, despite how busy the lobby parliament was on Wednesday. She came in and she spoke with us. And just in summary, for us, the day was very fruitful because we were able to make additional contacts with MPs. Baroness Doreen Lawrence also came and spoke to us and agreed to take this issue to the Lords. And what we've decided to do after we review our session, that we would keep the pressure on and you know, build on the 12 MP that we have. I'm looking now at targeting all the Asian and Black MP there. I had a look, there's 637 MP in total, but there is about 150 Black and Asian MP, and my mission now is to try and target them with a letter. We strongly believe that, you know, there are some issues that our MP can assist with, even before we push for law reform, because, you know, law reform is clearly something that we think will resolve the total Windrush situation. And we know this because when we attended the judicial review with Anthony Brown and colleagues, the judge actually confirmed to us that a 19-page review that the court do not have the power to overturn primary legislation. So that needs to go back to Parliament. So we do believe in the long term, law reform is the way to get legislation change to rectify the Windrush situation. So there are other people focusing on that, you know, and we're focusing on getting information out to people both in the UK and abroad about the compensation scheme and are you eligible to apply? And we are focusing on a couple of issues that we would like some assistance from the MP. And one of the issues that we've raised recently with Professor Livermore, and we're continuing that conversation, is about homelessness and how much the Home Office is actually paying on a daily bed. How do you calculate the rate? And we believe that we can push that issue, with the help of our MP. There's also a massive issue that we think will help is legal aid. Legal aid is a massive, if we had access to legal aid, that would resolve a lot of issues around compensation, claim, etc. On all these things where people are struggling to find pro bono lawyers, etc. Is a difficult one. Then the other issue that we are conscious of is the 44 or 40 odd page application. And many people are put off by just the volume of paper. I don't know, Roland is on the call, so if you'd like to come in and just mention a couple of the other points that we discussed at our review after Wednesday, that we said we would want to push forward because we think policy change will make a difference with the Home Office.
That's fantastic. Roland, are you there to join in? Okay, June Elizabeth, do you want to add to that then?
Well, I wasn't able to attend that day, but what I found is that the Justice for the Windrush and the Global African Congress, right? I think they make a good team to work together, because what I found with Windrush generation and the support, it's so complex that you need to have the same minded people with the same destination, but people have to take different routes. Now, not everybody can do the parliamentary. Some people can specialize in different things, but everyone's got the same outcome. And what I like about the parliament, because if you want something done, you have to make sure you know where to go. So as Garrick has just stated, unless the law is changed or they take on like a Windrush Act, yes, certain things cannot be overruled. So, I applaud them and I support them. And I know that, if we keep plodding along, we will get somewhere, because it's moving up now. To be able to have 12 MPs is wonderful.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much indeed, June Elizabeth. Roland, are you there now?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Roland.
Okay, thanks. I've been listening in the background, but a call came in. I was trying to assist a Windrusher, so to speak. Yes,
Yeah.
so regards the lobby of Parliament, lobby of Parliament is to get the MPs on board, bring that to their attention, that we've been having, we as advocates and victim of the Home Office, so to speak, have been having over the past year since the scheme was announced, and is to get the MPs to do what they're supposed to do, which is to get the Home Office to do what the Home Office is supposed to do and should have been doing, which is compensate those people impacted, put them in the position they would have been in had they not been wronged by the Home Office. Now, there are a number of changes that we need. We've got a list. We're working on a list. List is expanding as we go along. And the list is primarily to get changes to the compensation scheme as it is at the moment, among other things. Now, some of the things on the list may take legislation in order for those changes to be implemented. Or there are changes that we're asking for that does not require legislative change, so to speak, i.e., this £8.91 per day for being homeless, and pension needs to be sorted out, as well as those that are widening the scope of the scheme. Um, for instance, that other family members can be brought into the scheme to make application as close family members. Now, we've got stepchildren are not included. They can't make an application as a close family member, where you find in many cases they are stepchildren that probably live with a parent from the 3 or even younger years old, and they would have supported that primary claimant when they're going through their struggle, so to speak. So I think it's irrational not to have stepchildren included. Great grandchildren and great grandchildren of Windrush generation can make an application as a primary claimant if they have had impact on their life caused by their inability to prove their legal status in the UK. However, great grandchildren are not included in the scheme. I think they should be brought into the scheme and should be able to make claim as primary claimant. And I'm not saying that out of thin here when I reference great grandchildren. I've got a number of those, I've come across quite a number of those, and they are not in the scheme. When I was at the Windrush International Conference, I engaged with Home Office in one of the workshop, talked to them about this £8.91 per day for homelessness, and where they're at, what they said. I know it was utterance, it was verbiage, but what they actually said, they need us to engage with them and these things, and they may be willing to make changes. Also, I raised the great grandchildren issue at winners meeting last Thursday, and they said even though it's not in the scheme, that does not mean it can't be brought in, and they're willing to change. So the impression I'm getting at the moment is the Home Office is willing to listen, they're willing to make changes. Those are not my words, their words. So those, let's call them soft changes that can be made without legislation, the grandchildren, homelessness, stepchildren, etc., etc. We're going to engage with them as much as possible, put all the relevant and logical list in to see if they will make those changes, and that will run parallel alongside lobbying of Parliament, and hopefully we'll get the soft changes as well as the hard changes like a Windrush Act and so on and so forth. That will minimize the risk of the Home Office scandalous behavior and attitude towards the Windrush generation of a repeat of that in the future. I'll leave it there for now. If anyone needs any clarification, I would like to ask any question regarding the lobby of Parliament, then I'm willing to give a bit more clarification on that. So I'll hand back to you, Liz.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Garrick. And this site I've got open active at the moment. It doesn't normally quite look like this, but Justice for Windrush Generations. If it's all right with you, I've just added the information that you put off the chat. I've included that now on the home page. So if I just log out, I don't know if you'll be able to see it the same. I don't know if you can see it the same now. So that's how the front
Yes,
page.
I can see. Thank you. Thanks.
Is it okay, Roland?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, it is. Yes,
That's
I've
good.
just brought that forward
on
above
point.
now because this was a great poster that you provided for the lobby of Parliament. What you're saying is, I feel close to tears. You know, to think that things are happening, positive things are happening, and the Home Office appears willing to make some changes. You talk about soft changes. I think that's a great way of calling it. And you know, and then also to be clear that there needs to be change in legislation, serious change in legislation, to ensure that what's been going on can't carry on. I just think it's brilliant. I just congratulate you all very,
The
very
other
much.
thing to mention, Liz, that's probably worth you making a note of. As a result of the lobby on the 16th, we are able to connect Melissa Williams with Professor Livermore. And the reason why we did that, because part of Melissa research is some field work in Jamaica that is planned. And as you know, that Professor Livermore is planning to go to Jamaica and do some work there. It's likely to be sometime in the new year because of his operation, etc. So we've connected those two together, and we think the benefit would be really great for Windrush in this way. We're trying to get as much data research information as evidence. So we think that, you know, with Melissa work, Melissa can actually, you know, use the opportunity of getting some research that can be fed back to us, and we can subsequent move that up to Home Office. So that partnership, I think, is going to be fruitful. In addition to that, you know, my understanding is that Professor Livermore is not just restricting to one country. It is the plan for him to visit other countries as part of his external evaluation. I don't know how many countries in total, but he has said to me that he will be visiting other countries. And I think, you know, getting information on the ground is so important, because we don't know the impact on the experience of people locked out into those countries. What is their situation, how it's affecting them and other people. And if we can get some information, you know, at grassroots level, that is going to assist us, you know, to get a better picture about, you know, the impact of Windrush outside the UK, people locked out.
It's very interesting indeed, Garrick, and really important that we don't really know. And we've had, I know you've had some difficulties contacting the organisation that that perhaps supports people who've returned to Jamaica. I know Roland wants to come in, and then David's just going to make a couple of comments. Roland, did you want to come back in again? Should get David to come in. Roland.
Yes, Garrick said we're up to 12. We've got 12 MPs. We're actually up to 15 MPs that supporting us as well, because a number made contact via Windrush Generation and Advocates. So yes, we're up to 15. Regarding Professor Livermore, when he's in Jamaica, GAC is making contact with a rep on the ground in Jamaica, and I also will be in Jamaica while he's out there, because I've gotten an indication of when he will be in Jamaica. And Gary did mention that he will be visiting a number of other countries. It'll be a good idea for him. I think he's going to visit other Caribbean countries. It would be good for him to visit a West African country. I'm thinking Ghana. Based on the discussions that I'm having with people in Ghana, I think it'd probably be a good idea for him to take a trip to
I
Ghana.
agree totally. I
If
think
not
that's
Nigeria,
right.
I'm thinking Ghana, because I've got contacts out there.
So at the moment we're talking with Roland,
Yeah,
and Garrick, who are active with all the work that they're doing, and also the Windrush Allies Network. I think that we need, you could do with linking with the North Wales Africa Society, Salamatu Fada has got very strong links in Nigeria, as has Maggie. So if you remember those two names, please, and then I'll send you their contact and we'll follow that up. Moqapi, you've got a point, and then it's
Please,
David.
just give me that name again, please.
Salamatu Fada. And,
okay, and it's the North Wales Africa Society, you said?
North Wales Africa Society, and Maggie Ogun.
Okay, thank you.
Bowell. She also travels back
Okay,
and forth
thanks.
to Nigeria, so they're two good contacts possibly. Anyway, it's nice to share their names because both of them have joined the Black History conversations at different times and shared their stories. Moqapi, yeah.
Yes, Liz. Yeah, I got kicked out when you were thanking me. So I was just coming back on that. Yeah, there's a part 2, and I'd like to thank each and everyone actually for giving me the opportunity of doing that little bit of research, and hearing what Garrick and Roland and June are doing. It's really I'd just say keep up the good work. You're doing some great works there, you know what I mean? So keep it up, you know. Yeah, well
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for doing that research. And I was thanking you when you suddenly disappeared. Brilliant. And when would you like to do the second session? Next week we've got Dr. Bunmi Oisan. She's going to make an interesting contribution, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. So hopefully you can stay with us, Moqapi, for a moment. David, you wanted to make a couple of comments.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things about what I've been hearing. I mean, it's been, both of the main sessions today have been very, very interesting, very informative. On the Windrush scandal side of things, I mean, I absolutely agree that ultimately it's got to be done through legislation, because unless I've got this completely wrong, there's been no changes whatsoever to the legislation that set up the hostile environment. And until that changes, I don't see how you're ever really going to get over the sort of long-term issues that legislation causes. And I don't want to put a dampener on things, but I mean, to me, until you've got a government that actually wants to do something, I don't think you're going to get that legislation. I mean, remember who the Home Secretary is. She's the one that would have to stand up in Parliament and present a bill, a Windrush bill. And I don't think it's kind of the sort of thing she's going to want to do. So I'm not convinced that there's the political will at the moment to make significant changes to the legislation. And I think until that's done, then these struggles will continue. So that's, I mean, I know that's a bit of a dampener, but that's my take on where we are with the Windrush. Just to follow on a little bit on the Windrush point, Arthur Torrington has been in touch with me because he's planning a celebratory event of a project next year for the 75th anniversary. And sort of as a side issue of that, I was contacted by an ITV researcher, somebody from who they're planning to do a program next year on the Windrush, the 75th anniversary, and they basically contacted me through the Historical Roots website, and they were really, I think they're just trying to find ideas for how to present a program next year about the Windrush, and I think they want to do a celebratory program about all the contributions that people from the Windrush and from that generation have made to British society, which is great. But I think they also kind of want to sort of put a spin on it that isn't perhaps quite as positive. And I've sort of said to them, look, if you're worried about the Windrush scandal, rather than focusing on, focus on the now, focus on the compensation scheme, because unless I got this completely wrong, the compensation scheme is not delivering what it was claimed it was going to deliver. And I mean, all the contributions today have suggested that that's the case. So I said to her, that this researcher, that I think the next scandal really that's brewing at the Home Office is the fact that this compensation scheme is just going so badly. And I suggested that if that's something they want to talk about, it might be worth them talking to, I think it's Martin Ford, is it, the QC who set the scheme up? Because I saw a speech that he gave at Manchester the other day where he basically said he wasn't happy with the way the scheme was going, and he said he's spoken to senior people at the Home Office about it, and they said, oh yeah, sorry Martin, it's all Ukraine now. So Windrush stuff has been pushed to a back burner, and I do think that for me, it's the compensation scheme, and you've been touching on these issues yourselves today. I mean, I see that's the next scandal, to be honest, because I just think the Home Office aren't handling it at all well. So that's just what I wanted to comment on the Windrush stuff. The other, I did just want to say something about the left behind people, the barrel children, because I do agree with Liz that there's kind of there could be a book about this. I mean, she mentioned I forget the name of the book now, but the Brown Babies book, the research into the brown babies. It sounds to me like if somebody did the research, you've got a similar kind of book here about the children who were left behind. I just wanted to mention one of the black footballers that we talked to, one of the pioneering black footballers, Roland Butcher. He was left behind to begin with, but his story was slightly different because he didn't want to come to England. When he was told, oh, you've got to go to England now, he went and hid under the bed because he was so happy with his grandmother. He didn't want to leave. I forget if he was Jamaica or Barbados, but he didn't want to leave. So he was really happy to be left behind, and was quite disappointed when the call came that he had to come to England. So there's all sorts of aspects to the left behind story that I think are worth following up. Anyway, those were the comments I wanted to make. Thanks.
Thanks very much indeed. I think the idea of the book, I'll come to you in a moment, Garrett. The idea of the book is an interesting idea, but the essential thing is to help people to understand, and maybe if some stories were shared more widely, then it may help others to understand and in some way come to terms with that. And David, can I ask you, special favour this, when you speak to Walter Torrington next, and if you could make an effort to speak to him, I'd really like you to raise the point that in Jamaica, they very much want to be a part of this anniversary. And I don't think that the connections have been made yet. I'm talking to Vivian Crawford, who's the Executive Director of the Institute of Jamaica. And I'm also been talking with the librarian from the National Library, who's going to be working on it. So we do need to make that connection. So I wonder if you could help me do that. That would be very helpful. And if anybody's, interested, like the ITV say, well, they're going to be doing things in Jamaica, because it's important, both sides, and this will help to raise the whole profile of the Windrush issue in Jamaica, that it's a better known story because it isn't all that well known at the moment. And finally, on my point coming in now, just to say, I've got a good friend in Jamaica. She was left behind. She's very happy about it. She's got a good relationship with her mother who lives in England. So there are some good news stories. It isn't always the hardest story. Right, I'm not sure what order we're going to go in. So just quickly then. So Garrick, because we need to wrap up in a bit. Simon will be on his way. Garrick?
Yeah. Yes. So just a couple of points from what David has said, and you're absolutely right, David. We don't see legislation coming through this current government. We know that. And in fact, what I've done, I've written to Sir Keir Starmer formally that the next general election, this is part of the manifesto as a priority. Because we don't think that this government will give us anything. So that's the first thing. You're absolutely right in that. The other thing I want to say, Liz, in relation to the 75th year, there are many people don't see this as a celebratory thing because of the impact of Windrush. And if we can get a story, as you just indicated, to sort of shift away from the celebration, it can be split in part one and maybe part two of the continual impact and hostility that Windrush is facing. If we can get that into the 75th event, that would be a good thing. So I think that would be my view. And then the other thing, David, the current government select committee already recommend to government that the Windrush scheme should not be where it is. It should not be in the Home Office. And, you know, but they won't respond to it. They're just sitting on this information, but it's already there. One of the things that is so important is the messaging that we're putting out about Windrush, because still people think Windrush is over. They don't know it's still going on and it's still affecting people. And, you know, it's these continual conversations that we're having, allowing people to know that Windrush is still alive and kicking, and the impact. And so, you know, the messaging needs to be still put out there in every opportunity that we get to say that. And then finally, you know, on a Sunday, in our Sunday chat, which is twice a month, the second and last Sunday of each month, and this last Sunday is coming up this week. We have an informal chat focusing on the compensation scheme and status. We get people from inside the UK and outside the UK coming online and asking questions about, you know, the scheme. Are they eligible? We've been running that for some time, and we will continue to do that, because those informal conversations, we pick up quite a bit of information about individual, and then we can then signpost people to more specific help and support.
Thank you very much indeed. That's really helpful. That's brilliant. Okay, Moqapi, do you want to come in next?
Yes, thanks. Just on what David said, the name of the person who set up the scheme, I missed it, and I think I need to scribble it down. So if you could just repeat that for me.
Yeah, it's Martin Ford, I believe. F-O-R-D-E.
F-O-R-D-E.
Yeah, he's a
F-O-R-D-E. Martin Ford QC. I work with Martin on the task force initially with the setting up of the scheme. Yeah,
he's a KC now.
Yes,
King's
and of course,
Council.
the scheme that Martin presents is not the scheme that is being implemented. The Home Office didn't follow the recommendation. They changed it. And there was an interview. Martin did an interview on Channel 4 when certain question was put to him specifically around that, and he made it quite clear that, you know, they did differ from the scheme, and they took things out and put things in.
I mean, if ITV were making a documentary, I'm presuming that Martin Ford would still be a very good person to talk to. Is that right?
Yeah. Martin Ford made a very good presentation during Black History Month in Manchester.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
That was excellent. So, David, you couldn't find the contact, and we could share that with Moqapi.
Which contact?
The link to that presentation.
Excuse me.
I've got
it. I was just going to send it to Moqapi. I've got it.
Yeah,
That's lovely. You've got it. That's fine. That's really good. Thank you very much indeed. These are all really valid, very important and valid points that are being made. Roland, and then I'm going to make a point about the Welsh Government in case, just telling you in case I forget. Roland?
David, good afternoon. That ITV researcher you mentioned, if possible, I would like to have a discussion with you about that. And at some point engage with the researcher that we can give information about a number of things that are happening in the background, that Windrush things are happening in the background, i.e. the lobby of Parliament and other things and highlight some of the issues that specific issues that are and concerns about the scheme, and show clearly based on facts, data, etc., why the scheme is not working, and it's not working in the spirit of what it was set up to do. So I would definitely like to have a discussion with you. I've posted my telephone number there, so you can
Okay.
make contact with me. My email address is there as well, and then we can
Okay.
have a discussion, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just
I think it would be really valuable, Roland, June, Garrett, to involve David in the Windrush Allies network. He's got really good contacts and things, so that would be valuable, and he's very sensitive in all that he deals with. So thank you very much indeed, Roland. Okay, the point that I was going to make was about the Welsh Government, and that I'm waiting for someone from the Welsh Government to get back to me, but I've got someone lined up now in South Wales who will support the response from the Welsh Government and help to advise on that. So that's quite positive. So it's all steps along the road, isn't it? So
Liz,
I have to thank all of
Liz,
you.
Liz,
Sorry?
if you don't mind me saying, I wrote to the Home Office specifically about Wales as
Yeah.
to what engagement has
Yeah.
been done. And as I did send you the reply
Yeah.
of the organization, because I'm concerned that I don't believe on the ground people in Wales are actually, aware of the scheme and the impact. And I think in the last year, I've only made two contact for somebody from Wales. So I don't know if enough work is being done in Wales on the ground to get information out about the scheme and status. But in the reply, the organization that they referred to, I need to find out what are they doing, or if it was just, one-off incident and stop.
Yeah, they have been really good. I have followed it up with my contact, and the Butte Town Community Centre, of which she's the chair, have hosted more than one session, I think. So I think we can just follow this up in a little while. So just want to say brilliant, thank you very much indeed to Moqapi. Thank you so much for joining us from Tanzania. It's just been amazing. Now,
Liz, I just wanted to say, could I just quickly, just a quick point. Is Windrush Day the equivalent to the Surrey Day in Australia? And that was my...
Okay, do you want me to answer that? Yes, I'm the only person who can. No, it isn't anything like it.
Okay.
We have days to celebrate the Aboriginal culture. We have NAIDOC Week. I can't tell you what all the letters stand for, but that's very positive representation. There's a great deal of positive progress. There's going to be a referendum on the inclusion of Aboriginal issues in the Constitution. Changing legislation. We have a different government here now, very different focus of the government. Amongst the first things that the new Prime Minister said was about the bringing this referendum forward and recognising the statement from the heart, which is a very important document. So maybe I could do something about this sometime, or perhaps maybe get somebody else, but like it's 2 o'clock in the morning here, so it's a bit difficult to get people willingly coming to talk. But yes, it isn't anything, but really we need a British Sorry Day. But it's here, it's done with such positivity, and like the local councils have Sorry Day events, and they have the healing ceremony with the smoke and the welcome to country and acknowledgement of country, and have speakers, and really people share their stories of being stolen. Yeah, unbelievable stories. So yeah, interesting. Okay, I was just going to very quickly show you what's going to be happening next, and I just need to scroll down on my thing. Okay, so we've got next week, whoops a daisy, we've got Dr. Bunmi Oyisan, who's a Nigerian author based in Canada, and she is going to come to talk to us about, and this is a slide for next week done already, except Moqapi, I've got you down here saying you're going to carry on perhaps with your left behind us, but you might want to leave that for a couple of weeks. But Bunmi's going to talk about two of her recent sessions that she's run. This was a few weeks ago when Queen Elizabeth passed. Why are Africans mourning Queen Elizabeth II? And also another program that she did, which is about if King Charles is truly sorry, then he should champion reparations. Now, Bunmi's sessions are brilliant. She's run them as long as Black History Conversations, but she runs them several times a week, almost every day sometimes. So she's really generating an enormous following, and is covering a wide range of Black history stories. I'm currently watching The Stuff the British Stole, which is a great Australian TV programme, which it'll be really interesting when it gets shown on British television. But they're not only talking about things that are stolen and stashed away in British museums or whatever, but they're also talking about some of the wider issues to do, like with the crown jewels, and to do with things that were stolen and brought here to Australia from other countries that should have stayed where they were. So yeah, these are just some other things to follow up. Last week we had Velma McClymont and her wonderful book, Little River. So you can get hold of that through womansview.com. And for anybody with an real interest in Jamaican history, this is really going to be a real special read. Also, the week before we had Professor Robert Burrows telling us about the research he'd been doing on Black students in Imperial Britain. So that's a really interesting one. And I've included this again because you can read it for free, which is great online, obviously. And Robert was telling me that more books and particularly academic papers are going to now in future be made available free online, which is really good news, because you can't really keep buying all these things and you can't always get them out of the library. So thank you very much indeed for bearing with me while I went through those other few bits and pieces, and thank you very much indeed. Is there anything else anybody wants to add? If not, we'll thank you all very much.
Sorry, I was just going to say,
thank you, Windrush Allies Network.
I was just going to thank everybody, because as usual, it's been a very informative and interesting afternoon. So thanking Garrett and David and Moqapi and yourself, everybody. I also just wanted to plug Juanita Cox. Her research is to interview 60 people nationwide who are involved in the Windrush, the British government Windrush scandal, I put it that way, as claimants or as advocates. So I just wanted to put that out, because I met her on your programme and she came to Northampton, spent the weekend to interview myself. And what was mentioned in this afternoon, she will be making sure she's get a balance, because she didn't have enough claimants. So that would be interesting. I think Garrett and David and Roland might be able to support her. She hasn't reached the target.
Right, okay, that's really worthwhile knowing, and perhaps you can get the word round to some more people. Well, thanks very much indeed. I'm just going to ask Simon if you're still there. Can you wind up the recording?